Dear viewer, good evening and welcome tonight. With me tonight, Dr. Hayg Oshanda. I hope I said it name. And he is the director of the new Michigan Media. Dr. Hayg, welcome again to MEA.
Oh, thank you for having me again, Wally.
Thank you. As we know that you are in charge of the U.S. Census with all the ethnic minority, and your organization have, I think, 1,100 media outlet, or
No, we have connections with almost all the ethnic media across the state of Michigan, minority and ethnic, and that's over 150 or so
150
across the state of Michigan.
I see. Okay, what's the latest in a U.S. Census, and especially now we have the coronavirus and the whole country and the whole world involved and paying attention to that, and U.S. Census is come second or third or fifth thing to think about it. Tell me the situation.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. We have concerns. I mean, coronavirus is a pandemic. It's an emergency. It's a crisis.
Yes.
But the census is important too, and we can't lose sight. We can't forget about the census. It's easy now with everything else going on, with people trying to figure out how to work from home and staying in and so on. But everyone received the census already, and it's time to do it and to send it back. Too much is at stake with the census, and there is a concern that people will maybe forget about it or not pay attention to it because of the coronavirus in particular, and we won't get all the responses that we need from Michigan.
I see. As you mentioned, more than 60% of the people working out of home, and that's easy. When they receive the form, they could go to their computer, and it's easy. At work, they might not have the time, but where they're at home, they have the time.
That's right. It's the first time ever that the census is being done online.
Yes.
And so if you have fast internet, which is almost 80% of Americans, they will get a letter with a code on it.
Yes.
For you to just log on with your number and just fill out the census online. And you can choose the language you want as well.
I believe you have a form.
So this is the envelope that the census comes in.
Okay.
It will say resident of an address. It
Yes.
doesn't have your name. The census doesn't know your name.
Yes.
And then inside you will get 2 pages, and the front page will have a code on it.
Oh, is that the code
That's
that you
the
have
code.
to
That's
put
what you have to put in.
Okay.
And once you put that code in, and it'll be your chance to fill in the census. And you can choose among a number of different languages, including obviously English, but Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Russian, Arabic, Tagalog, Polish, French, Haitian, Portuguese, and Japanese.
Wow. So that's no excuse for
No excuse for not doing it.
fill
That's
it up.
right. And if you don't do it,
Yes.
eventually you get another letter. That's a reminder. The reminder looks like this. It also has your code on it.
Okay.
Every week, every 1 or 2 weeks, you will get a reminder from the U.S. Census that do it, please. It's time to do it. Some people will get the paper version of the census. That is, they will get the full.
When they will get the paper version?
Same time, they will.
Oh, same time.
So those who have slow internet where they live
Okay.
will get the paper version, the full paper version of the census instead of this envelope, instead of this code.
Okay.
So they will get the paper version that they can fill out with pencil and then mail it back. Now, if you don't answer the census and you wait too long, they will send you the paper version later on, like in a month or so. They'll send it to you. If you don't answer, you will get it. But the key here is to answer it when you have it at home.
Yes.
Eventually, because if you don't answer it after a month or so, someone will come knocking on your door from the Census Bureau.
I see.
That date
When
was
that will happen?
the original date for that was end of April, early May.
Okay.
But I think they're pushing that back now by at least 2 weeks.
Okay.
And so mid-May, late May, someone might be coming to knock on the door. But we shouldn't leave it to that. People coming on no one wants to have someone they don't know knocking on their door.
Yes.
And I've heard people who work for the census, who went knocking on doors, and they would tell me, they would knock door after door, nobody would open it. So they would see someone look through the blinds, through the window, who is at the door. They don't know who it is. They don't open the door.
Especially from the ethnic minority,
That's right,
they
that's
fearing the,
Yeah.
Somebody from immigration or
That's right.
different department. to
Even
come,
if
you
the
know.
person looks like you or me, they still don't open the door. And so, the best thing to do is to answer it now, not to wait.
Okay. What's the questions? Can we go through one by one, please?
It's just 9 questions.
Okay, what
It's
is it?
very simple. The census asks how many people live in this house.
Okay.
It asks what your name is. It asks you what your gender is, male or female.
Okay.
It asks you what your relationship is to everybody else living in the house.
Okay.
It will ask you your phone number, and it will ask you if you own or rent where you're living.
Okay.
That's about it.
That's it?
That's it. It's very simple. It's not like some IRS kind of form. It won't ask you
Or
Social
personal
Security.
questions or
It won't
Social
ask you
Security.
citizenship. It won't
Yes.
ask you, your income. It doesn't ask you. It just needs to know who lives in America. That's it.
Yes. And that's for all, if a student, okay, he go to college, should we count him at home?
This has become an issue now because normally students would get it in their dormitory
Okay.
and they would count it where they are living in school.
But right now it's
But
closed.
now they've all been sent home.
Okay.
The problem this creates is for a city like Ann Arbor, for example.
Okay.
The University of Michigan has 30 to 40,000 students there.
True.
If they fill out the census at the University of Michigan, the city of Ann Arbor has 30,000 more people.
Sure.
But if they go home and fill it out, then the city of Ann Arbor has 30,000 less people.
So how are we gonna do that?
So that's the problem right now.
Yeah.
The census wants the universities to get in touch with the students and ask them to fill the census, and then say where they're living normally. But it's going to be a difficult thing. It's going to be difficult to figure out exactly who is where. So two issues. One is the students need to fill it out. Whether they do it at home or at school, they need to fill it out.
Okay.
But for a city that has normally a lot of students who aren't there all of a sudden, the city could lose a lot of money for
Sure.
the next 10 years. So
Sure.
that's an issue right now.
Is that, should we count if somebody come visiting the United States, or if I have my cousin live with me at home, should I count him?
Yeah, if they're living in the United States, yes.
Yes.
If someone has come here and is staying here,
Yes.
then they should come.
Legal or illegal?
Legal, illegal, paper, no
Yeah.
paper,
Yes.
green card, F1 visa, student, whatever.
Because they're not gonna ask him for citizen or green card or,
no, that's
yeah.
it. But if they're here as a tourist and they're just going to go back,
Okay.
then no, they don't count. I mean,
They-
if they're going to go back home,
Yes.
if they came from Lebanon to visit you, they're going to stay here for 2 weeks to see you, and then they're going to go back to their house and job in Lebanon, for example.
But if they decide to stay here.
But if they decide to stay here,
Yes.
then they count. Yeah, they count. And if you sublet to anybody in the house, if you
Okay.
give a room to someone just to make some extra money, you need to count them too.
You need to count it.
Yeah.
And if you have, for example, a grandparents living with you, occasionally, like
Well-
if they come and live with you 6 months and they go to your brother living 6 months and,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they should pick some place where they are living most of the time and fill it out there. One of those locations they should fill it out in.
I see.
They should decide which one is the one that they want to fill it out in, but they need to fill it out somewhere.
I see. And we talked about the confidential, and again, we have to emphasize in this, especially with the ethnic minority, and especially we have in Washington, unstable Washington, and every day coming with different order and different law and different things. How that confidential?
It is the biggest issue I think that we
Yes.
face is that first. I think the other big issue is people don't know why the census is important.
Yes.
But the other issue
We're
is
gonna
this.
come to that.
The other second issue is this issue, the fact that people are afraid, and that if they fill it out, because you're putting your name, you're putting your phone number, it's your address, obviously, and you're putting how many people are living here and who they are. Each one of them,
Each one phone number?
each one phone number, each one
one
name,
phone,
each
okay.
one,
Yes.
So you're telling people, telling the census who's living here.
Okay.
People are sometimes worried that they may have something that they don't want to share with authorities, and that it will be found out. But the fact of it is that the census is completely confidential. The census is for 72 years completely secret. After 72 years, yeah, the information is out.
72 years,
Yeah, 72
yeah.
years, but for 72
So
years,
only goes to one department, the government, and it stays there.
it goes to the Census Bureau
Yes.
and it stays with the Census Bureau. It's not shared with anybody. It's not shared with FBI. It's not shared with ICE. That's not shared with Homeland Security or the IRS or insurance companies,
Yes.
it's not shared with anybody.
For example, now the administration, they might send checks to help people that they lost their job or temporarily losing their job. Are they going to go to the census and
No,
figure
they
it
can't.
out?
They can't do it. They cannot go to the census.
Yeah.
Nobody can go to the census for any,
And
no
that's why they're
government
going
office.
for the filing income tax.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They, your
That
information. Some
goes
of your
to the-
information is on income taxes.
Yes.
Some of your information is with the post office. Some of
Yes.
your information is on Facebook. Some of your information is, there are different places where we have information. But whatever you put down on the census is not shared with anyone.
But not with anyone, okay. Is there a column that will tell you what nationality you are, if you are an Arabic, Chinese, Latino, American, Indian American? Is there one for all ethnic minorities? And in this case, is there one for the Arabic or the Middle Eastern?
You're right. I forgot to mention there is one question that asks you what your race is and how you would want to identify yourself.
Yes.
Now the races that they ask about are African American, Native American, Asian American,
Okay.
and the ethnicity
Latino.
the ethnicity they ask about is Latino. So those categories are filled out. You can fill those out. You can check those out.
Okay.
If you're an Arab American, though, there is no category like that for you.
Okay.
And so you could just put white, for example.
A lot of people
People
last time
do.
did
That's
that.
right. They just put
Yeah.
white.
Yeah.
There is, however, space at the very, very end of the census, at the very last question, where you can fill in a box. You can fill in Arabic.
Okay.
And if you want to
Or
get
ethnic, other ethnic,
or other ethnic,
Chaldean
yeah.
or
Armenian, Chaldean, that's
Coptic,
right.
yeah. Yeah.
So if you'd like the count to be correct about how many Arabs live, for example,
Okay.
Arab Americans live in this area, then yeah, people should write down Arabic at the very end. The Arab community, the lobbying organizations of the Arab American community tried to get
Yes.
Arab Americans as a category. It would
Yes,
have been they call it MENA, MENA, Middle Eastern and North African.
Yes.
They tried to get a box for Middle Eastern and North African so people could just check off that box. But the Census Bureau looked at it and decided not to do it. And so it wasn't
Hopefully
successful.
next time,
Yeah, hopefully next
Because
time.
there is a lot of money comes to ethnic minority and depend on their population.
Yeah, so there is no room, like if you're Jewish, for example, there's you have to write it in too. There's no
Yeah.
box for Jewish.
There is,
I think people should write in Arabic, Chaldean, Armenian, Jewish, whatever it is at the bottom of the census. But otherwise, you're just going to check off white.
What's the benefit of that?
The benefit of it is if enough of a group live in an area, there are federal grants that come in for that group. So, for example, if there are enough Arabs that live and a lot of Arab Americans live in the Dearborn area and this area.
And Michigan in general.
In Michigan, in general, but down here. So
Tri-County
Access, for
area.
example,
Yes.
the organization, the social service organization, can ask for more money for, let's say, mental health services or
Yes.
child care services or elder services, specifically money that targets this or that minority group.
And same thing with the Chaldean Foundation. With
That's right,
all of them,
exactly. So if you know
Yeah.
that there are enough people living there, you can ask the government, the
Yes.
Michigan state government, for more money from the federal money that the government gets.
that the government gets.
That I need more money because look, we need ESL, for example, English as a second language for
Yes.
Arabic speakers. We have the classes here. There are this many Arab Americans here, and so we need this much money. But if everybody checks off white, then it doesn't show up as Arab
Yeah.
Americans, and you
You'd be
can't
part
ask
of the
for the money.
community at large.
That's right, and you can't ask for
Yes.
ESL money the same way, or you can't ask for mental health issues for the same way. So that's the connection. And if we do a good job of writing down Arab American or Arab, then it improves the chances for the Chaldean organization, foundation, or the Access, or any similar organizations
Yes.
to ask for more federal money to help the communities.
I see. What's the benefit for the city or the state to have more population or less population?
Now, this is the core use of the census.
Okay.
Every year, we would pay taxes to the government, and some of that tax money comes back to each state in terms of in the form of government assistance. And
Health, education, roads.
and how much money? Yes, that's
how
right.
much money?
How much money comes
allocated?
back depends on how many people live in a state,
That's why.
and how many people live in a state
Yes.
is counted on the census.
I see.
And so, if the census count is low, that means they think there are less people living in Michigan, and so Michigan
And
will
even
get
for the
less
state
money.
too.
Yes,
For example, when Detroit lost the population.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They lost a lot of.
I remember in 2010 when the
Yes.
when the census numbers for Detroit came out. We all thought Detroit had 800,000 people or so, or at least 750,000 or something. But the number for Detroit came out at 713,000. It was a shock. I remember the newspapers wrote about it. Mayor Bing sued the government, saying, "No, we're much more than 713,000." But that's what the census numbers showed, and that's it,
Go by
713,000.
what you write.
That's right. So all the assistance that the city would have gotten at 750,000, all the money the city would have gotten at 800,000,
Yes.
all of that is
That's
lost.
a huge difference.
It's huge difference.
And how much usually per a person the federal government give to the city or state?
It varies. The average for Michigan, the idea is that for every person not counted for the state will lose about $1,800 per person per year for 10 years. But for a city like Detroit that gets more money every year, because there's more people who need Medicare and so on,
Sure.
then the number is more. So Detroit, Pontiac, Flint, Benton Harbor, cities that need more assistance, there the number is $5,500 or close to between $5,000 and $6,000 per person per year for 10 years, and that adds up to a lot of money. If 20,000 Detroiters are not counted, and that's almost guaranteed in a city of 800,000, that's $1 billion for the city of Detroit over 10 years with a B, $1 billion.
Wow. That's big money. Yeah.
And Hamtramck, for example, if 10,000 people in Hamtramck are missed, that's $500 million for a city like Hamtramck.
And those cities, they need it
They
most
need
than
it.
anybody else.
I mean, have
honestly.
you driven on Conant or
Yes.
Joseph Campo? The roads are terrible.
I met you there.
Yeah, that's right.
See,
So
they need it so
They
bad.
need it for schools,
Yeah.
they need it for roads, they need it for healthcare, they need it for the elderly, Meals on Wheels, they need it for Head Start. It's money that all of our communities need. And if we don't count right, we'll get less of the money that we deserve. And so much is connected to the census, so much money is tied to it. The city of Dearborn in 2010 answered the census. The percentage of people who answered the census in 2010 when it came in the mail and sent it back, that 74%. Okay, 74% is not bad, but that leaves still almost 25% who didn't answer the census, and someone has to come knock on their doors now to have them do it, and people don't open the door, and so the city of Dearborn lost millions of dollars.
When they lost in Medicaid and education, they complain.
Yeah, that's right.
This is the time for you.
This is the time to do it.
To do it, and
Yeah, do you think the schools, the high schools, middle schools, elementary schools in Dearborn need money? Of course they do, for resources, for school lunches, for books, for supplies, and all of that goes down if there is less money and if the count is low.
Dr. Hayg, as a new Michigan media, what the role you're playing to educate the ethnic minorities in Michigan toward the census and encourage them to fill up the right information and all the information?
Yeah, this year, in 2010, Michigan didn't do that much, and the city of Detroit did practically nothing about the census. This year, though, the state is really working hard to get the word out on the census, and the state has raised $15 million to help spend on the census.
Yes.
Illinois raised $30 million. California raised $100 million.
Because
okay,
population.
And they raised more money. Yeah, but 15 is good for Michigan, and so that money is being spent. So the city of Detroit has raised its own money, about $3 million, to spend on neighborhood by neighborhood, talking to people, going to the churches, and having videos playing in churches. The state of Michigan, through the Michigan Nonprofit Association, has a campaign going with billboards, with ads in farm area ads, gas station television, Secretary of State TV, ads on ESPN, TNT, and the state of Michigan is spending about $10 million on social media kinds of campaigns, advertising
Yes.
Across the state. So they came to me at one point and said, because we have connections, as we said at the beginning of the show, with a lot of ethnic and minority media across the state, 150 of them.
Yes.
They asked me if we could come up with a campaign to get the message about the census out to all of these communities through their local ethnic media.
Yes. Because usually the ethnic media, yes, they hear it or they watch it in a network channel, but when they watch it in their ethnic channel or ethnic newspaper or ethnic radio, it goes direct to them.
It's there's a lot about the issue of trust in
Yes,
this message.
exactly.
It's not enough to say it's confidential. Believe me, it's not enough to say there's a lot of money at stake. Believe me, it depends on who says it. For
Yes.
you to believe the person,
Absolutely.
and if you say it to your audience, they see you on MEA TV and radio. They know you, they trust you, and if you say it, it makes a difference.
Absolutely.
It's like that everywhere, and so if an imam says it, or if a
Yes.
priest says it, it makes more of a difference, or school principal says it.
Sure.
It makes
Or
more
any
of a difference.
organization and any ethnic minority.
That's right. And so the same with ethnic media in general. If
Yes.
it's the radio station you always listen to, or the newspaper you always read, or the
Yes.
TV station you watch, if the message comes from there, it's more believable. People trust that source.
Yes.
And so the importance for us is to use all of these ethnic media from here all the way to northern Michigan, the Upper Peninsula.
Oh,
I'm
the whole
dealing
state of
with
Michigan.
I'm dealing with Native American papers and radio stations up in the Upper Peninsula.
Yes.
To get them to write about the census, to talk about the census, to advertise and discuss the census. So that's been my responsibility on the census. So I've been working with about 110 ethnic and minority media from here all the way up north,
Yes.
west coast, north part of the state, and this southeast part of the state, to get the word out. And that's how we're doing this as well with you,
Of
is
course,
because you
yeah.
are an important voice in the Arab American
Yeah,
community, and
thank
so we need to get the message out.
And
to
this
the-
benefit is not just for Michigan because we broadcast in every state of the nation. When is the deadline that the census will stop getting information or stop the campaign?
Well, it was going to be August.
And the
mid-
reason
early-
I'm saying that because I'm going to bring the corona
Yeah.
and people cannot have gathering. And I know part of your mission, and I saw you when you went to the Bengali community, there was gathering. We cannot do that anymore.
I mean, I've been giving about two talks, public speeches a week on the
Yeah,
census.
see.
And like you said, the Bengali community, they had 50 community leaders together. Gave it at the Islamic Center of Detroit as well, to Arab community leaders, given to Latino community leaders, to Haitian, Jamaican community leaders. Met with this West African, Senegalese community recently.
So when is the deadline?
The deadline is the original deadline was August.
August.
Yeah,
First
the
of
original
August?
deadline. Yeah,
First
the
of
original
August?
ones. Yeah.
Okay. Because of that corona, and it's hard to get gathering and all that, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, they're pushing it back.
To where?
They're pushing it back right now to 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3
Yeah,
weeks.
because there are two parts to it. The door knocking for individuals was scheduled to begin May, the beginning of May.
Yes.
But right now they were already going door to door for people living in group situations, like nursing homes, for example, or prisons,
Yes.
or for the homeless. All of that was going to happen now.
No.
But they've stopped all of that.
Because of
They can't, yeah, because of
no gathering,
coronavirus.
no
Yeah,
more
so
gathering.
no more gathering. So all of the information from group situations like nursing homes, retirement homes, where people live one address, but there's 100 people at
Yes,
the end,
yeah.
at the address. All of that is stopped. So all that has been pushed back. The door knocking for individuals like us, the May date, that's been pushed back at least 2 weeks.
When are they
and-
going to start?
well, at this point, they're talking about middle of May or the end of May for the door knocking, middle or end of August for the whole census. But who knows? I mean, how long it's
But
going to
are
take.
they definitely going to do it in 2020?
Yeah, they're going to do it in 2020. Even if it's pushed back, they're going to do it in 2020. It's in the Constitution. The U.S. has done it every 10 years since 1790.
Yes.
1790. It's a
Yeah.
long time, and
Mhm.
we've never not had a census. So we'll have it. one issue is, of course, it'll be pushed back. The other issue is it might not be a good census. People might not answer, and they might not do as much door knocking because there's no time, and people might not open the door because they're afraid of the virus, and so the concern is that we might not get a good count this time around. That's the concern.
So what are you doing about it?
Well, they're just pushing it back right now.
Yeah.
They're hoping that the pandemic gets under control in another month by, let's say, middle or late April, so that they can go back into the field and do everything. A lot of the campaigns have been pushed to social media, so Facebook campaigns. The city of Detroit and the state
Media, the TV, radio.
Right, radio. The state and the city have bought phone numbers so that you get text messages. So I don't know if you get a text message already, but people are sending, so they're buying text numbers and sending text messages. So they're moving as much as possible to not face to face. But
to be honest with you, even the politician for the primary in August, they start using us more and more and more because they cannot go to no fundraising, no gathering. So they come here and do the commercial and and give their message to the community. And we are playing a good role to build those bridges. If it's politician, if it's census, if it's the
and for ethnic minority newspapers,
yes,
a lot of them are left in stacks at restaurants.
Yeah.
Or
Exactly.
And so restaurants are closed, and no one gets to see the newspaper. I mean, so we have an issue with our small, the small newspapers across the board because gyms are closed, churches and mosques are closed,
That's right.
restaurants are closed,
Yeah.
and so where are you going to pick up the paper from?
Sure.
And so the MEA TV and radio becomes more important.
Absolutely.
Radio
We have an
stations
electronic
become more
newsletter
important.
goes 70,000 people.
That's right, yeah.
And we're putting all the information in it.
So that's an issue.
And we are ready, whatever you guys ask us to do, we know this is so important to the community, important for their future, for the education, for the health, for the road, I could count 100 things. If we have less population, we're gonna lose.
We do everything from children going to college and the grants and the loans that they get to children who are newborn, who need Head Start or who need schooling or who need education or who need school lunches. Schools provide free school lunches, but it's not really free. Someone's paying for it.
Of course.
And a lot of that money comes from the census.
Yeah, and the health is just a proof. Our health is not equipped to handle
That's
things
right,
like this.
exactly, yeah.
And if we have enough money, we just said have enough money, then we'll be equipped.
Exactly.
We will face much better than what we're facing now.
No, exactly. We would be better able to handle a pandemic or any health issues. But even the emergency health centers that we have in our communities, they're partially funded from the census.
Yes.
And hospitals that treat people who cannot pay are funded partially from state money, then that comes from the census too. So there's all kinds of community services and needs. Low-income housing, if you want to borrow money to buy a house, and that partially is funded from the census.
There's so many things that depend on this population, those census.
And the politics too,
Can you share a little bit about the politics?
Yeah, our voice counts,
Yes.
We care that our concerns are heard both in Washington, D.C. and in Lansing.
Yes.
And how many voices we have, how many congressmen and congresswomen we have in Washington, D.C., how many state senators and state reps we have in Lansing.
Yes.
Both of them depend on the census count.
On the census.
Right? We lost one congressional seat
Last
in
10 years.
2010.
Yes.
We had 15, now we have 14.
Yeah.
And we might lose one more this year, if not two maybe even.
Wow.
And the seat that I think is probably in danger is the sort of the area that is Rashida Tlaib's and the Congresswoman Dingell's area.
Yes.
So those are the areas where
Yes.
if the count is really low, we might lose a seat there. And that's our voice in Washington.
Absolutely.
And then the Arab American community has fought so hard over the last 20 years to get its concerns and its voice heard by the state government in Michigan, whether by having judges be elected or appointed, whether by having police chiefs, for example, be Arab American, whether by having school principals, school superintendents, school boards have Arab Americans on them. All of this is...
All the offices have to reflect their community.
That's right.
And it's not happening.
And we care about having political presence and political voice. And a lot of that has to do with, who is in Lansing, who is, representing this area, how many people are representing this area in Lansing. And if the count is low, we'll have less people there.
Absolutely. Less people to fight for us in
That's right, exactly.
in Washington.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Dr. Hayg, at the end, again, we'll come to confidentiality. And give me a message, a minute and a half to the community. What's the important and why they shouldn't fear and fill up everything?
You know, this president has created a culture of fear with Homeland Security and his own comments regarding minorities and immigrants. But, you know, presidents come and presidents go. The census has been the same for a very, very long time. It's been done since 1790, and the confidentiality laws that are in place have never been broken, and they're very tough laws. And the census information is not shared with anyone. And so, you know, I hope people don't let what one politician or another, what one Facebook message or another, get them to be afraid of filling out the census. You know, it's confidential. No one gets the information. The law has never been broken, and if you don't fill it out, we lose a lot. And so they should listen to you. They should listen to their imam. They should listen to their priest. They should listen to the school, the principal or school superintendent. All of them are saying the same thing, that it's confidential. It's secret. For 72 years, no one sees it. Don't worry about it. Don't be afraid of it. Just the opposite.
Yes.
Fill it out fully, completely. Count everyone so that we get what we deserve as a community.
Have the, you know, the right presentation for you and your community. You know. Well, thank you again, Dr. Oshagan, and hope and hopefully we'll have you when the coronavirus settle down and all that. We'll have you more, so the community, they might busy and their mind is not concentrating heavy in other things except that corona things, because it's a threat their family, their community, their city, their state, everything. So we'll bring you again, and hopefully that the people, when they receive the form, to fill it up, and will be less and less people that we could concentrate on them to finish everybody to fill it up.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank
Sure.
you.
Dear viewer, that was my interview with Dr. Hayg Oshagan. Dr. Hayg Oshagan. He's the director of the new Michigan Media, and honestly, I've been watching him. He's doing a great job. His organization doing a great job. They're reaching through the media they represent, which is over 150 outlets. They're reaching all the ethnic minority. And what you see today, he's been doing that with all the media and with all the ethnic minority. And I encourage you to listen to him. This is so important to us. If we don't get the right number, we will lose a lot of things. You lose the education for your children. You lose the Medicaid for your parents. You lose the health. You lose the road will be a mess. Everything will be a mess. The food that they given to your children at the school, you might lose that if the population that come less. So please, I urge you to go ahead. It's probably 10 minutes of your time. You could go to the computer, and they are all different language. So you could have it in Arabic and Latino and English, and you know. So you could go to a Middle Eastern community in the Arabic and fill it up. So please do that, and not just for you, but for you, for your family, for your community, and for your state. Thanks for watching, and good night.